I want to transition now to a quarterback that, of course, wasn't going to be on the top 100 list, nor should he have been. Malik Willis, the rookie for the Tennessee Titans. Now, he just completed his final preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals, and he balled out. And we've seen improvement. We've seen growth in each preseason game for Malik Willis, which is what you want when you are an NFL fan and you're rooting for these NFL rookie quarterbacks to come in and be productive and to play well. These are high leverage moments for them in their careers. And yes, it's the preseason, and it's never good to overreact to preseason games. But at the same time, and especially when it comes to quarterback play, because those are the positions where you can see right away whether this guy has command, whether he's comfortable, whether he's poised, or whether the moment is a little bit too big for him. But let's be honest. It's way better to try to downplay a good preseason performance from a quarterback and simply write it down to, hey, they're competing against second and third string guys, than to see a rookie quarterback struggle immensely in the preseason and be worried why he's not showing any flashes of command, why he's not showing, displaying the vision and completing passes. Because we've seen certain quarterbacks struggle, not only in their rookie preseasons, but even in their second and third preseason years, like Jordan Love for the Packers, for example. So it's always better to see a guy thrive in the preseason and just downplay it than struggle. And so far, that's what we've seen from Malik Willis. Now, historically, in the third and final game of the preseason, who are the types of players that you're going up against? Historically, you're normally going up against first string guys, at least for a couple series. Now, that's been drastically reduced over the last several years to limit injuries to sustained starters. But the fact of the matter is you're normally going up against better players, whereas in the first couple of games of the preseason, you're competing against the second and the third string guys. Now, Ryan Tannehill is the current incumbent and the current starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. But I do think that the way that Malik Willis has been playing in this preseason, it warrants a discussion for whether or not Malik Willis should actually start over Ryan Tannehill. Because, again, I know it's just the preseason. I know I should pump the brakes. But he's improved every single game in the preseason. What he's displayed that's impressive and important is not only the vision, not only the ability to extend plays, to play make, but again, you look at the body build, you look at the way that he feels comfortable, the way that he presents himself. He just carries himself in a certain way that I do think will earn him kudos in that locker room. That I do think in some ways he can kind of make these players believe a little bit. Because if I'm the Tennessee Titans, I'm seriously considering starting Malik Willis. Let's be honest, the Titans and the San Francisco 49ers are in very similar situations. Now, the 49ers' roster is more talented than the Tennessee Titans roster, but the quarterback situations are very similar. What do the 49ers believe? Well, they believe that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't good enough and placed a cap and a ceiling and lowered the ceiling of what this team can accomplish. And they didn't believe that they could reach the apex and reach the pinnacle of where they're trying to get to, which is to win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. And to be honest, I'm sure internally the Tennessee Titans have had the same questions and are dealing with the same kind of quandary that the San Francisco 49ers are, which is, can Ryan Tannehill deliver us a Super Bowl? And to be honest, I think they already know what the verdict is. I think they already know what the answer is. And the answer is no. And I actually think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. Now, again, the difference is the rosters are completely different. So Trey Lance is inheriting a really, really good roster. And I think that Malik Willis would still be getting a competitive roster. I don't think that this is a good Tennessee Titans roster. It's not a Super Bowl winning roster. When you cut Julio Jones and Janoris Jenkins and you lose A.J. Brown, you trade him away, it's hard to convince me that you've gotten better. Best case, you've stayed the same, if not gotten worse. So I think when you look at the Tennessee Titans and why they have fallen short over the last couple of years, it hasn't been because of Derrick Henry. It hasn't been because of their defense. Unfortunately, it's been because of Ryan Tannehill. He's been their biggest Achilles heel. And it gives me no pleasure to say it because I genuinely like Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a good guy. I'm glad he's managed to collect his money and resurrect his image and his career in Tennessee. Seems like he is incredible in the community, that he's extremely philanthropic. He stands up on the podium. He represents his organization well. He's a first-class individual, and I think he is a good quarterback and a worthy starting quarterback in the NFL. I do believe that, and I'm happy for it, genuinely. But the Titans, if you go ahead and you start Ryan Tannehill again, it feels like it's going to be deja vu. Let's look at the last three postseasons. Last year, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the divisional round, 19-16 at home. Why? Tannehill threw one touchdown and 3 interceptions. He was atrocious. And even he would acknowledge that and tell you. What happened in 2020? They lost to the Baltimore Ravens 20-13. Well, once Derrick Henry was bottled up, Tannehill could only muster 13 points. He couldn't muster up enough points. That's 2020. 2019, when they reached the AFC Championship game, they reached that stage because Derrick Henry had put up historically great numbers in the regular season and in the postseason. He had 182 rushing yards in the wild card game against the GOAT, Tom Brady, and the Patriots. That's what ultimately sent Tom Brady retiring from the Patriots and off to the Buccaneers. And he followed that up with 195 rushing yards in the divisional round to lead the Titans to the AFC Championship game. And then Henry was bottled up, and Tannehill couldn't elevate the team. That's the truth of the matter. And again, I like this Traylon Burke kid out of Arkansas who they drafted in the first round. But this would be like Groundhog Day if you were to start Ryan Tannehill again to start this year. And I think that if you were to look at all the Tennessee Titans fans and say, who's going to be a bigger attraction for you? What would be a bigger sell to convince you to go watch the Tennessee Titans play? Would you be more excited and more enthralled to see Malik Willis or to see Ryan Tannehill? And I understand that Tannehill can use his legs as well, but what we've seen so far from Malik Willis, he can be an electrifying player. He showed you flashes of brilliance. He showed you the spontaneity, the ability to check at the line and to read coverages. Again, he doesn't have nearly the same experience as Ryan Tannehill, and I'm not saying that it would be a smooth transition right away, but I think the plane would fly. I think Willis would be able to take off the runway. It might be a little turbulent at times. You fly over the Rocky Mountains. It's a little bit turbulent at times, but the bottom line is the plane's going to fly. And at some point, it's going to stabilize. It's going to reach cruising altitude. And I do think that he can reignite the fan base a little bit. I don't think that with the roster that they have, by starting Willis, the Titans are conceding anything. I don't think this would be a formal concession that they're tanking. I don't think it would ultimately jeopardize their season completely and just be a throwaway year. I think that if anything, Willis could perhaps, his presence could just uplift not only the fans and their morale, but I think the players and the belief. And I think the upside can be a lot more with Malik Willis. Now, again, am I saying to start him week 1, even though it'd be a favorable matchup against the New York Giants? Not necessarily. But at some point in the season, could I see a situation where they start Malik Willis? I could. I honestly could. And I would actually be a complete supporter and advocate of the move. I've been really impressed by what I've seen from him. He says all the right things. He's great in front of the podium. He's eager to improve. He's eager to learn. He's always talking about trying to get better. He doesn't heap any praise onto himself. He's always praising his teammates. Again, yes, you go through media training as an athlete, but he seems like a genuinely good kid who just wants to get better. And I support it. I absolutely support it and would love to see him ultimately start for that team.